The IPL continues to do IPL things. After all, the KKR versus Gujarat Titans game was seen as something of a formality because Gujarat Titans would go on to win the game, seal their qualification and eliminate Kolkata Knight Riders mathematically as well from the playoffs race in 2026, right? Right? Well, not so much because KKR ended up registering a pretty comfortable 29-run victory on the day, thanks in no small part to some fantastic bowling from a man who has defied age, has defied changes in the game, has defied a remodeled action in Sunil Narine. Now, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Narine, the player, because again, he's not just a great bowler anymore. He's someone who is, after all, one of the better all-rounders in the IPL right now, such as the impact that he can have with the bat as well as with the ball. But once he didn't get the chance to bat against GT, he made sure that his bowling did the talking on the day. 2 wickets, an economy of a little over 7, and absolute control on a flat track that offered precious little for spinners, mystery spinners, pacers, you name it. This was a day when over 460 runs were scored and Sunil Narine was returning with figures of 7 economy, 2 wickets. Again, as I say, numbers don't quite do justice to the kind of effort it was, because he ended up getting not just one big breakthrough in the power play, but also the most crucial breakthrough in the death overs when he got rid of the set batter in GT skipper Shubman Gill. Had that catch not been taken, and by the way, it was an excellent one from Anukul Roy, you could have perhaps been looking at the game very, very differently, because GT had kept themselves in the hunt at that point in time. However, with Gill dismissed, it felt like the wind was taken out of their sails, and despite some decent batting thereafter from a returning side Sudharsan, who remember had to retire hurt due to picking up a knock on his elbow, as well as some questionable batting from Gill Buttler, and we'll get to that in just a bit, KKR ended up registering a win despite their star big signing in Matisha Patirana only bowling 8 balls due to a recurrence of the injury that he had supposedly suffered, which kept him out of the IPL so long in the first place. 8 balls, that's all you got from the 18 crore man. But the main culprits, and it really has to be said, there are 2 major culprits for the Gujarat Titans in this particular game. And number one was the fact that their batters, despite actually not losing too many wickets, just didn't seem to seize the initiative in the game. In the 11th over, they were still going at an economy rate of 10. So the scoring rate was 10, whilst the asking rate at that point in time had crept up to 14, 15, which, while it's not uncomfortable in today's day and age, is definitely not where you should be sitting when you consider that they had 9 wickets still in the hut. Gill Buttler was well set, Shubman Gill was well set, so in theory they should have kicked on from there, right? Especially when you consider that this was a track that offered nothing for the bowlers. It was an absolute batter's paradise. Despite that, they weren't able to do that, and because of that, the asking rate kept creeping higher and higher and higher to the point where they had no choice but to go for big shots. Now, to give Shubman some credit, he managed to do just that against Varun Chakravarti. There was 4 or 5 boundaries in 1 over of Chakravarti. It was his final one. But after that, the struggles really started when Gill got dismissed. Sai Sudharshan got some boundaries. Buttler got a couple of boundaries, but I'm sorry, batting at a strike rate of 160, which is where Buttler finished, it's not acceptable in a chase of nearly 250 runs. And that really was where GT lost the game in the first place on the second instance. The first we'll get to in just a bit, because not just Buttler, even Gill was operating at an underwhelming strike rate. He finishes with a strike rate in the 180s, but at one point was operating in the 140s and 150s, which is fine if you have a partner on the other side who's operating in a strike rate in excess of 200, say 220, 230. Then you're playing the supporting role, and it's easy to understand that, yeah, you can hold one end up and not go as gung-ho. However, both Buttler and Gill were playing exactly the same kind of innings. They weren't looking to take too many chances. They were playing percentage cricket, and that really is what cost them, because whilst they were getting 10, 11, 12 runs and over, the asking rate was creeping up over 15. And it reached a point where soon enough the pressure really got to them and they had no choice but to go for it. But despite having so many batters in the hut, they just weren't looking to accelerate. I can understand taking the game deep if you're at a point wherein you have lost 5 wickets and you have no batting to come after that. but they weren't at that point. They had lost just 2 wickets when Gill was dismissed, and he was dismissed in the 17th over. That in itself tells you how easy a pitch this was to bat on. That KKR lost 3 wickets, and SRH and GT also lost 3 wickets. I'm not counting that last wicket because that came on the final ball of the innings when the game was already done and dusted. It barely mattered, made no difference in the grand scheme of things. So for GT, they really have to look and say, listen, do we have a team, or more importantly a template, whereby we can chase scores in excess of 200? Remember, GT's record chase is just about 207, which is not massive by modern day T20 cricket standards. That's a very chaseable total, especially in the right conditions. However, they struggle when it comes to chasing anything in excess of 220, 230 because quite frankly, the batters they have are used to batting in a template that is dated. However, all of that would have still worked out for them, but for the fact that they gave away so many extra runs in the first innings by absolutely dropping dollies. Now, let's be fair, this year's edition of the IPL has not been a great one when you're talking about fielding standards. One too many teams, and yes, I'm looking at you, Punjab Kings, I'm looking at you, definitely GT after today. They've just not had high standards in the field. It's just not been good enough. We've seen one too many regulation catches drop, and GT, by the way, dropped not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 4 catches on the day. And the only person who I'm giving any discount to was Jason Holder, because that was a real toughie. Allen had absolutely muscled it. He went for the one-handed effort, but the speed of it was so much that he only got a fingertip to it. Not a realistic chance. Would have been an absolute blinder if he could pick it. The same, though, I cannot say about the rest of the catches that were dropped. They were absolutely regulation, absolute dolly catches that were dropped. And you just weren't actually that good in the field either. Even their ground fielding at times left a little to be desired. Contrast that with KKR, who supplemented their good batting show with some excellent fielding and good catching when it mattered. Looking at you, Anukul Roy, and you can understand why it is that they ended up on the winning side of things. Remember, it is catches that win matches. That's always been the way. It might be a cliche, but it's a cliche because it is also true. And as for KKR, again, they'd be looking at this and going, okay, we've got a team that can still do well in conditions that are batter friendly and not just spin friendly. Because a lot of KKR's wins in the past came in conditions where their spinners found something. Because again, this is a team that starts with 3 spinners in Sunil Narine, Varun Chakravarti and Anukul Roy. However, this time around, their pace attack, which was severely dented considering that Patirana could only bowl 8 balls, really came to the party. Karthik Tyagi did decently. Saurabh Dubey in only his second game gets a wicket but also bowls a phenomenal 19th over that doesn't give away a single boundary. Great bowling at that stage in time. And also Cameron Green, who not only ended up getting a 50 but ended up today with an economy of 8, having bowled his full quota of overs and also getting a just wicket at a time when the match was dead. But still, that wicket was the reward for the efforts that he'd put in with the bat, ball, and even in the field where he was seen absolutely diving around and sliding around. He was putting in the effort, and again, in the end, it is that effort that ends up counting in KKR side. And sadly for GT, well, they still have their fate in their own hands. All they need to do is beat CSK in their final game of the season and they will get that queue in front of them. But it just didn't end up coming against a team that, truth be told, they probably should have had the beating of, given that KKR are at this point in time still just 1 loss away from even being mathematically kept out of the equation. Now you can let us know in the comments below what your thoughts were on this particular match, and don't forget, as always, to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, follow us too on social media. We're on Instagram, X and Facebook, and stay tuned for more such updates from the world of sport.